PayPal is being looked at by Stripe and Advent for a $53 billion takeover offer. Sounds like PayPal is suggesting that they are worth more than that, but that's still
Course.
a pretty significant premium to the current company's valuation, right?
Of course. I gotta say, I like this deal a lot. So it's a joint bid by Stripe and then Advent International, and I think Block may be involved as well, though the details are a little murky. They're offering $60.50 a share, so it's 53 billion in market cap. That's a 28% premium to the prior trading price, and it's like PayPal has been valued between 35 and 45 billion for most of the past year. There was a time they were worth over $300 billion right at the height of the pandemic, and so they've come, they're down 90% from where they were in 2021. And there are a couple of reasons why I think Stripe would want to do the deal. One is it's just that on the valuation, if they can get them for 53 billion, PayPal did $7 billion in profit last year. So here's how the PayPal stock price has traded over the past year. They've traded up a little bit on the rumors of the acquisition, but they were down in the low 40s in terms of market cap at the end of Q2, and that was down about 90% from their post-pandemic peak. And so one reason why Stripe may want to get them is just the valuation is very favorable. PayPal generated 33 billion in revenue in 2025, $7 billion in EBITDA. So it's basically a 6 or 7 times, maybe a 7.5 times PE multiple. And I got to think there's a lot of opportunity to take cost out of PayPal, and if they were to be part of Stripe, that profit would go up. So you're getting at maybe a 5x multiple in profit. So why wouldn't, on the one hand, why wouldn't Stripe want to do that? PayPal has really struggled the past few years. You can see the gross margins are down from 55% back in 2021. They're down to 46% back in 2025. The reason for that is they've moved a lot towards unbranded checkout flows, a very low margin payment processing volume that's driven top line, but not really profits. Braintree is a big asset that they bought a while ago. That revenue, as far as I can tell, is unprofitable, but that's been a lot of their top line growth. Not a great business in terms of their current position. I think what could make sense though for Stripe, and the reason why I like the deal for them, is PayPal has a lot of consumer wallets, over 400 million consumer, I think 439 million active consumer accounts at last count. So Stripe spent a bunch of years trying to build their own cross-merchant identity and fast checkout network. They called it Link. If you ever buy from a Stripe supported merchant and click on Save My Info for next time, you're using Link. Now, no one knows that they're using Link because they don't brand it that way, but they do have 250 million users. It's just, not, no one knows about it. So PayPal, everyone knows PayPal, 439 million accounts. If Stripe gains access to that huge, large network of pre-authenticated, verified financial identities on the web, it's a huge win. And when you get that consumer network, Stripe can then execute a closed loop. This is the magic of PayPal. They're working right now with merchants, but if they can get all those wallets into their system, they can use their PayPal accounts, your PayPal balance, your Venmo balance. The cash never leaves the Stripe PayPal ecosystem. They can route money from the consumer to the merchant through ACH or through their internal closed network, and just bypass Visa and MasterCard entirely. And if you cut the credit card toll booths out of the game, the net margin on these transactions goes way up. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Stripe to go after this. PayPal's done, I think, a good job on crypto. Their first shot at crypto in 2020 to 23 was kind of a clumsy failure, but they've built some rails and built their own stable coin called PYUSD. It's over 3 billion now in market cap, but I think Stripe could really benefit by building out their wallets and getting consumers to add crypto to their wallets and creating another alternative payment railway to Visa and MasterCard. So I kind of like the deal. I kind of hope they come to an agreement. I know PayPal's going to hold out and negotiate, but I'm kind of rooting for this one to happen.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a little bit more of a story here than maybe is just at face value. By the way, the news this morning was that the PayPal board rejected that offer. I'm guessing we probably haven't heard the last of this, and there might be a more hostile effort to take over the company if there's people on board playing ball. But I wonder if there's maybe moves happening in the stablecoin world that are driving some of this deal. I think there was, recently the announcement by Visa on their stablecoin platform. Stripe has been making moves in the stablecoin world as well.
Yeah.
Arranging this money with Advent. I wonder if Stripe is not just using this money to consider buying PayPal, but maybe considering making other acquisitions in the market as well.
So you think PayPal will counter and Stripe will want to up their offer? Is that Is that your thinking? This is a
Well,
start of a
I'm
roll-up
not
strat?
sure that I'm not sure how you can counter an acquisition offer. I guess maybe like
Right.
ask for a larger number, but they're not
Yes.
doing that at the
Okay.
moment. But it's already like a 30% premium to the current share price of the company, right? So, like, I guess
Yes.
how much more do you think the company should be worth if the market's already saying that's a 30% premium?
Yeah. I think they're probably playing hard to get. I think the shareholders at a certain point will also, they'll have the final say. So if the board says no, we don't want the 30% premium, and they do have a new, they have a fairly new, I guess a fairly new CEO, Alex Chris is maybe a couple years in. Remember they had Dan Schulman up until 2023. Chris might be a couple years in. They have said they're in a turnaround. I guess they're in a turnaround. Maybe the board is going to get a little bit of time just to consider the offer. But I have to think that shareholders will not be happy to just walk away from a 30% premium if the stock price doesn't continue to rise from here. They may force the board to reconsider this offer. But my guess is right now they're just negotiating and playing a little bit hard to get. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's another offer on the table in the next week or two.
Ricky, you and I, we both know that this marriage has been over for a long, long time.
No! I honestly did not know that.
Our last story for today is another defense tech company. EU defense tech company Helsing is raising at an $18 billion valuation. They're raising $1.8 billion from Dragoneer and JP Morgan. Defense tech getting a lot of headlines lately with companies like Anduril and Saronic. Seems like there's no end in sight for defense tech, Aman. I guess we're seeing continued war in Iran and Ukraine, and lots of people looking at different type of defense tech areas, drones as well, right?
Yes, exactly. I think this is a trend we highlighted again about a year ago. Defense budgets across the board, across the West, are rising. The U.S. is spending something like 3% of its GDP on defense. That number used to be 6% in the 1980s. It was 9% of GDP in the 1960s when Kennedy was president. So on a relative basis, the budget has lagged. Europe has been even further behind. Most of the NATO members not hitting their 2% of GDP defense allocation. That's a NATO requirement until I think recently now the budgets are getting back up to 2%. And this is a German company. 5 years ago, Dave, I would not have thought that a German defense company, a German military company, would be the premier tech unicorn in Europe. But here we are. Apparently, it's Germany is rearming, and they've been this company it's a defense AI powerhouse, and they've got 441 million euros in revenue. So the funding of it has been it's a 32 times forward multiple. So pretty significant valuation and just in pricing and I think continued growth. But that's just a reflection of the geopolitical context and just defense budgets across the board, dramatically increased. They're going to be in a perfect position to capitalize.